This video response is going to go out to Ray Comfort, and that's because you uploaded a video entitled Audacity. And the first thing I'd like to say is that as a Christian, I admire the fact that you tried to tackle such a tough subject as alternative lifestyles. However, this movie is replete with academic errors, and I will cover these errors in this response video. Now, the first thing is that when someone isn't a Christian, okay, let's say there's somebody who isn't a Christian and they watch this video, are they to presume that people living alternative lifestyles are going to be attacked by people who look like ogres? Is that the first thing they're to try to presume here? And what young lady is parked in a remote location at night by themselves? Anywhere. Matter of fact, I would say to the young men, don't be parked in remote locations by yourselves either. The world is just too dangerous for that. Okay? So that's the first thing. Now, once we get finished with that first scene, suddenly the movie shifts from a young lady to some guy standing on stage in a comedy performance. What does that have to do with alternative lifestyles? Absolutely nothing. Okay. Now, very few young men today choose to watch a cable news program when they switch on their television set. They come home, it's at night, and what's the first thing they do? Do they, in this day and age, do they suddenly turn on their television set and seek some cable news program? No. In this day and age, what they would do is either they would open their laptop or activate their smartphone or their tablet, and they would be taking a look at their emails. They would be seeing what their social status was on Instagram or possibly YouTube or Facebook or whatever. They would not immediately switch on the news, Christian or not. And I know this because I live this lifestyle. Okay? Now, after I look through all my social media, then I start seeking out some kind of an entertainment program. Now, do I watch the news on cable television? Yes, I do. But not the last thing at night. If there's news to be found, I'll either find it on a Facebook post, or somebody will send it through YouTube, or maybe I'll find some news on Instagram or something, but that's not the first place I'd look. I wouldn't look on cable news, not anymore. It's a real shame, but it's true. Okay? Now, too many Christians have a problem with self-confidence. And that's the next thing you address in this video. Whether you intended to or not, it makes no difference. That's the next thing you addressed. Far too many Christians do not read the book of Ezekiel. Of course you want to be a polite Christian. That's not what I'm saying here. However, every Christian should know Matthew chapter 5, verse 37. If that confuses you, then you need to really research that. If more Christians knew this, they could easily overcome peer pressure. And you had a classic case of peer pressure right there in your movie. If they can't overcome that, can you imagine trying to overcome peer pressure into narcotics? Or any kind of sexual situation? There you go. You don't have to be mean-spirited, but you do have to obey the dictates of Matthew chapter 5, verse 37. I know you guys are going to start looking this up, and you finally get it. Okay, as a bike courier, this young man was more concerned by transporting a package to its destination than his own personal safety or the personal safety of anybody else. That's absurd. And you see a clear case of this in this movie. That's completely backwards. That's not even common sense. It should be the reverse. This young man should be far more concerned with his personal safety and the personal safety of everybody else than worrying about his job. Okay? And this is especially true if you're a Christian. So that one's completely backwards. Alright. Believe me, no job is worth injuring yourself or injuring anybody else, because an injury is permanent. Okay? If your boss has a problem with that, you need to work for a new boss. And don't be ashamed of that, because God will show you a new boss to work for. Okay? Now, later on in the video, this young man is sharing an elevator with two ladies who are trying to obtain a marriage license. And what does this guy do? A very classic mistake. I see this from Christians all the time. Instead of offering personal testimony, he reaches for a leaflet or a booklet or a book. It doesn't matter what he reaches for. The fact of the matter is that Jesus always taught by word of mouth. You'll find that in the New Testament. Jesus didn't distribute leaflets or pamphlets or books or showed people videos. He didn't do any of this, and neither did his disciples. The only reason why those Gospels were written like they were was because that these disciples, who had become later apostles, okay, they were getting aged and infirmed, and they no longer could deliver the message themselves. So what they did was they recorded their history so that others could then study the history and offer their own personal testimony along with this. That's why they did it. But the oral tradition was the customary tradition of the New Testament church, the early New Testament church. Period. It's far more effective because what it demonstrates to people is that you actually believe what you say. It's not a cop-out. And then, on top of that, while he's in that elevator trying to reach for his literature, he then turns right around and decides not to present it to him. This man lacks convictions. And that's not something that a Christian should ever do. So, yeah. Anyway. And then the young man disobeys John chapter 15, verse 13. Not once, but twice. And you see this in the film. And if you need an explanation about this, go ahead and contact me and let me know, and I'll explain this a little more thoroughly. I don't want to give away too much of this movie, but I'm saying he disobeys John chapter 15, verse 13, twice. Okay? And then this movie has a blatant product placement. I mean, this is absolutely blatant. And it doesn't do it just once. It does it several times. You need to be more subtle with your product placement. Okay? Now, I will give you one point. It is possible that God can give you a premonition. The question is, what do Christians usually do when they are given a premonition? Okay? Now, some Christians do the right thing. Some Christians just ignore it. If God gives you a strong enough premonition, you don't ignore it. You do what God tells you to do with those premonitions, but you don't ignore them. Now, how do you know what God wants you to do with a premonition? You study your Bible, and you do it God's way. You don't do it your way, you do it God's way. Okay? And a good example of that is John the Baptist. When he confronted King Herod about his marriage ordeal, yes, I'm talking about Herod's marriage ordeal, when John the Baptist confronted him on it, there you go. Now then, and then this young man in this movie disobeys Matthew chapter 18, verse 19. You say, well, how did he disobey that? Even if the young lady herself decides not to pray with this young man could bring her plight to the elders of his church, and they can pray together. Remember, fellowship in any church is pleasing to God. That's a fact. Okay. Well, finally the movie ends by explaining why the young lady was sitting in her SUV. Now, I'm sorry to say that many young ladies today, not all, but many of them, and I'm finding far too many of this, they don't possess common sense or any real intelligence. Now, I'm not talking elementary intelligence here. We're talking high academics. Okay? I personally feel that too many young ladies and young gentlemen, they're the same way. I feel that too many young ladies and gentlemen do not possess common sense or high academic intelligence. And this is something I battle all the time on my YouTube channel. Yes, I have my own YouTube channel. This is where this is coming from. And if you Google the name Speed Learner, you're going to find it. Now, I'm not trying to do a blatant product placement. I'm just flat out telling you what I have to deal with on a regular basis on my own YouTube channel. It's amazing to me what I have to deal with, but okay. Alright, now common sense dictates that you should never drive a vehicle on a dark, deserted road when you know there is less than a half a tank of gas in your gas tank. That's common sense. I'm sorry that I have to tell you all this, but it's true. Common sense dictates that if your vehicle malfunctions in any way on a railroad track, first be aware of any oncoming trains. And if you know that there is an oncoming train, because you're now aware of this, get out of your vehicle. Abandon it immediately. Don't let, the train is obviously going to hit your vehicle. Don't be in the vehicle along with it. The vehicle can always be replaced. You cannot. Now then, to finish this video up, and I hate to say it this way, but there's actually two scientific research studies that people misused. They misuse it even today to justify the, quote, gay gene. Now, in the description below down here, I'm going to place a hyperlink to another video that will discuss these two research studies and what they actually said. Now, if you guys want to actually see the actual research studies, if you ask me, I will place more hyperlinks down here to show you the actual research studies and what they actually say. Now, this is the first time I've had to deal with something like this. It wasn't that long ago that somebody sent me a hyperlink to a marijuana research study, and I comprehensively covered that marijuana research study on my YouTube channel and demonstrated that what they were claiming about marijuana was not entirely accurate. And I'll happily do it again if I have to. Why you never referenced this particular video, I'll never know. You should have. But if you guys want to see the actual research studies and what they actually say, I'll put the links down here too. Now, for those of you who are watching me on Facebook, you say, well, how do I see your YouTube channel or anything else? If you will look down on the lower right-hand corner of your screen, you're going to see a little icon that says YouTube. If you click that, you will go to the original location of this YouTube video. Okay? And then once you go there, if you look down at the right underneath the video, you'll see the name Speed Learner down there. You can actually click that, and it will take you directly to my YouTube main channel page. And you can see it for yourself. Okay. So, although I do admire, and I really do admire the fact that you took on such a tough subject as alternative lifestyles, I regret to tell you that I have to, on an academic scale, give your video a solid F. And like I said, it's not because you didn't try to cover a tough subject. It is a tough subject. I'll give you that. And I will say, in defense of your video, that the attitude of the Christian was correct. That was good. You know, the way you presented this young man and how he presented Christianity to people, that was brilliant. But because there are so many academic errors in this video, I just simply can't recommend it. Not to anyone. And I have clearly demonstrated the reasons why. So, Hopefully, you'll retackle this subject. You will make a new film. And maybe you'll get it more academically accurate. And if you do, I'll recommend that. So, I hate making videos like this, but, well, I really had no choice on this one. Alright, you may disagree with me, and that's fine. You go ahead and disagree with me. But I'm telling you that there are too many academic flaws in this video for me to recommend it as a Christian. And it pains me to say that. It really does. Because I had a lot of hope for this video. I really did. Alright, well, this is Ted the Speed Learner signing off. I will tell you more in a future video, so I want you to stay tuned.